When silence feels like punishment, there is a particular kind of quiet that does not feel peaceful. It feels sharp, heavy, charged. It settles into a room like a storm cloud that refuses to break. You can hear the refrigerator hum, the clock tick, the faint sound of traffic outside, but the absence of their voice is louder than all of it. You replay the last conversation in your head, searching for the exact sentence that triggered the withdrawal. You tell yourself maybe they just need space. Maybe you're overreacting, but your body knows something your mind is still trying to soften. This silence is not neutral. It feels like punishment. When silence is used this way, it is not about cooling down or emotional regulation. It is strategic distance. In narcissistic dynamics, what looks like quiet can actually be control. Psychologically, the silent treatment functions as a withdrawal of connection. And human beings are wired to experience social rejection as a threat. Brain imaging studies have shown that social exclusion activates regions similar to those involved in physical pain. So when they stop speaking, stop responding, stop acknowledging your presence, your nervous system doesn't register it as they need a break. It registers it as danger, abandonment, loss of attachment, and that alarm bell inside you begins to ring. For the narcissist, silence can serve multiple psychological purposes. At its core, it protects them from shame. Shame for someone with strong narcissistic defenses is not a fleeting emotion. It is destabilizing, even annihilating. If you confronted them, questioned them, or simply expressed a need that implied they fell short, their internal world may have felt exposed. Rather than metabolize that discomfort, they retreat. Silence becomes a shield. It prevents further exposure, but it also does something else. It reestablishes power. When they go quiet, the emotional focus shifts entirely to you. You become the one scrambling to repair, to explain, to apologize. Their silence recenters them without requiring vulnerability. At first, you might respond with patience. You send a gentle text. You ask if everything is okay. You give them space, believing this is maturity. But as hours turn into days, something changes inside you. Your thoughts become intrusive. Did I say it wrong? Was my tone disrespectful? Should I have just let it go? This is not weakness. It is attachment activation. When connection feels threatened, the brain moves into problem-solving mode. You look inward because that feels actionable. If you are the problem, you can fix yourself. And here lies the cruel irony. Self-blame feels safer than accepting that someone you care about is deliberately withholding connection. Psychologically, this is known as intermittent reinforcement, when affection and responsiveness are unpredictable, warm one moment, cold the next. The attachment bond actually strengthens. It is the same principle that makes gambling addictive. The unpredictability keeps you hooked. When they finally break the silence, even with something small, a casual comment, a neutral tone, you feel relief flood your system. Your body relaxes. Your heart rate slows. The nervous system interprets reconnection as safety restored. For the narcissist, this cycle reinforces control. They learn, often unconsciously, that withdrawal increases your pursuit. For you, it deepens emotional dependency. Silence also distorts perception. Without dialogue, your mind fills in the blanks. Humans are storytelling creatures. We need coherence. When there is no explanation, the brain creates one. And in a dynamic where you have already been conditioned to question yourself, the story often casts you as the villain. I'm too sensitive. I push too much. I ruin things. This internal narrative reshapes identity over time. The prefrontal cortex, the part of the brain responsible for rational evaluation, gets overshadowed by stress responses driven by the amygdala. Hypervigilance takes over. You monitor their facial expressions, their footsteps, the sound of doors closing. Silence becomes a language you try to decode. For the narcissist, the absence of communication avoids accountability. Conversations require mutuality. They require listening, empathy, sometimes compromise. Silence bypasses all of that. It allows them to maintain an image of superiority or wounded innocence without engaging in self-reflection. In some cases, they may even frame their silence as justified. I can't talk to you when you're like this. Notice the subtle reversal. The withdrawal becomes your fault. Psychologically, this protects their ego structure. By externalizing blame, they avoid integrating uncomfortable truths about their own behavior. Over time, the impact on the victim becomes cumulative. Decision-making grows heavier. You hesitate before expressing needs because you anticipate withdrawal. This is conditioning at the nervous system level. The brain learns that self-expression may result in disconnection, so it adapts. You shrink. You soften your opinions. You over-explain to prevent misinterpretation. Clinically, this pattern resembles trauma bonding, where cycles of distress and relief strengthen attachment rather than weaken it. The very thing that hurts you becomes the thing you crave resolution from. There is also a profound loneliness that comes with this kind of silence. It is not the solitude of being alone in a room. It is the isolation of being unseen while standing beside someone. You might share a bed, a home, a life, yet feel invisible. Psychologically, this erodes self-worth. Human identity is partly constructed through relational mirroring. When someone consistently withholds acknowledgement, it disrupts that mirror. You may begin to feel unreal, as though your emotions are excessive or inconvenient. The narcissist, meanwhile, experiences a distorted sense of control. Their silence confirms their ability to influence your emotional state without overt confrontation. Why does silence hurt so much? Because attachment is primal. From infancy, survival depends on caregiver responsiveness. When responsiveness disappears, the body reacts as if survival itself is at risk. In adult relationships, this early wiring remains. The silent treatment taps directly into attachment wounds. For someone with anxious attachment tendencies, the impact can be even more intense. The nervous system goes into overdrive, seeking reassurance. For the narcissist, particularly those with avoidant or dismissive traits, withdrawal feels regulating. Distance reduces vulnerability, but what soothes them destabilizes you. Healing begins with recognizing the pattern as a pattern. Naming it reduces its mystique. Silence used for regulation is communicated. I need an hour to cool down. Silence used for punishment is ambiguous, prolonged, and infused with contempt. Understanding this distinction restores cognitive clarity. It allows you to separate healthy boundaries from manipulative withdrawal. From a therapeutic standpoint, rebuilding internal safety is crucial. Practices that calm the autonomic nervous system, slow breathing, grounding exercises, consistent daily routines help counteract the physiological stress response triggered by rejection. Equally important is reclaiming narrative authority. Instead of defaulting to self-blame, you pause and ask, is there actual evidence I did something harmful, or am I reacting to withdrawal? Writing events down can anchor reality. Confiding in trusted individuals provides external perspective. Trauma-informed therapy can help disentangle attachment from anxiety, allowing you to tolerate distance without collapsing into panic. For many, the most radical step is tolerating their silence without rushing to fix it. This disrupts the reinforcement loop. It communicates, internally and externally, that connection is mutual, not conditional. Of course, when the dynamic shifts, escalation may occur. The narcissist might intensify the silence, introduce sarcasm, or pivot into overt blame. This is not randomness. It is a response to losing leverage. Control thrives on your reactivity. When you regulate yourself, their strategy weakens. Psychologically, this can trigger their own fears of abandonment or inadequacy, which may manifest as anger or further withdrawal. Understanding this does not excuse the behavior, but it contextualizes it. It reveals that the silence was never about your worth, it was about their defense. Eventually, a deeper realization surfaces. The silence was designed to make you question your value, and yet, your value exists independently of someone's willingness to acknowledge it. Rebuilding self-trust involves small acts of defiance against the old conditioning. Speaking even when your voice trembles. Maintaining boundaries even when met with coldness. Choosing not to chase. Each act rewires the brain. Neuroplasticity ensures that repeated experiences of self-advocacy strengthen neural pathways associated with agency and confidence. When silence feels like punishment is not merely a poetic phrase. It describes a psychological mechanism. It is about how withdrawal becomes a weapon when empathy is absent. It is about how shame avoidance in one person creates anxiety and self-doubt in another. It is about the invisible tug-of-war between attachment needs and ego defenses. Most importantly, it is about how awareness interrupts that cycle. Silence does not have to control you. It may still sting. It may still activate old fears. But with insight comes choice. You can learn to sit with the discomfort without translating it into self-condemnation. You can recognize that someone else's inability to engage does not define your legitimacy. And in that recognition, something shifts. The quiet no longer feels like a verdict on your worth. It becomes information, data, a signal about the relational pattern. And once you see it clearly, you are no longer trapped inside it.